Oh, no worries.
Well,
We've
mate,
done it before, so you might as well do it again.
well, mate, I wanted to start off by saying congratulations on the brand new single Saturday Nights. It is the most requested song on our show this week, so congratulations.
Oh, that's lovely.
And it
I'm
is
really glad to hear that.
And it is such an amazing track as well. I guess that's the best place to start. Tell us a little bit about that track. Where did it come from? Because it is such an amazing song.
Oh, it's actually Björn, our singer. He wrote the song, and I guess the rest of us just provided the sultry disco beat. And no, it's like all of our songs. It's about daydreaming and escaping the real world, and having the title says it all, I guess.
Yeah.
Just having the odd magic moment in life that you really don't want to end.
Daydreaming is so important at the moment because for people here in Australia, we're back in lockdown. We have been for...
I've heard that. That's horrible.
Yeah, 220 days out of the last year we've been in lockdown. So tell us a little bit about how the pandemic kind of affected you guys putting this album together as well, because I guess in a way the pandemic also helped you guys to work on this album.
Since we're all from Sweden and living in Sweden, we haven't had any proper strict lockdown, and we started the European tour in March last year, and we all got COVID during the tour when we had to cut it short, and so we all have antibodies, and so we were able to get together in the studio physically and work on the album, but I mean we still had restrictions, but not a proper lockdown as such. So, but of course it's still been a very really these past 18 months have it's been quite depressing, and being a touring musician and being used to that kind of lifestyle, and all of a sudden you're stuck at home. It's been difficult, but I mean the way we've been dealing with it, it's like just what can we do? No one knows when it's going to be over, so we'll just continue to write and release stuff because that's what we love doing, and it feels like as if our fans seem to enjoy it too and appreciate the fact that we're at least releasing new music, and because I think people need music more than ever in times like these.
Definitely. And you mentioned there about how life was different for you because you weren't touring. How did you overcome that? Because I know a lot of people have been getting what they've been calling here the quarantine blues, which is basically a nice name for depression. How did you overcome that? Like, did you find that there was days that were easier than others, or how did you go about that?
I don't know really. I've had quite a lot of mental health issues during the past year, but it's not been so much about COVID. It's been about other stuff as well, but I mean, living in Sweden, I guess it's affected us less than many other countries. I mean, just because we haven't had lockdown in that sense, but I have no idea. I mean, I guess I'm still I'm still quite depressed in a way, but right now I'm in England visiting my girlfriend, and we've been able to do stuff anyway. So I think it could have been much worse. And I know, like, my girlfriend, she is from England, and the lockdowns they've had here has been, I mean, it's been really severe, and in terms of depression and domestic violence and all kinds of horrible things, and in Sweden we haven't had. It's been hard, and I'm a doctor too, working in healthcare, and I've been working with COVID patients, and it's really depressing because you can't really do much more than just hope for the best, and it's just been very bleak in many ways. But at the same time, this new album, Aeromantic II, when I listen to it now, it seems to be quite an optimistic, uplifting album for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but I guess it's like our subconscious told us to make something happy for once.
Yeah. Look, I agree. I was listening to the album today while I was driving around and delivering food care packs to people that are out of work at the moment. And normally when I do that job, I find myself getting really down. But this album was like really uplifting. Was that something that you found that you were aiming for with this album, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah, it just kind of happened. I mean, it's always been like that with the Night Flight Orchestra. We never have a plan or a strategy. We just we write songs and go into the studio and start playing, and whatever happens. And so but perhaps, I mean, to me, songwriting and creating music, it's a subconscious process, and we try not to overthink things. We just let it happen, and perhaps this was the album we needed to do. Even though, I mean, none of us were especially happy, but perhaps we needed to, we need to make this album to make ourselves a bit happier too. I don't know. It's a mysterious. It's a mysterious thing. The whole creative process. But yeah, I'm really happy with it, and perhaps it's just good timing right now to release a party record.
Definitely, and it felt like you guys took some more risks with this album as well. That there's things in there like key changes and things that are very different to what you have done before. Was that something that you kind of went for with this album, or again, did that just happen?
Yeah, it just happens. But I mean, at the same time, we're all trying. The one thing we're always trying to do actively is to try to find new variations and new ways of expressing ourselves, and try different stuff. We don't want to make the same album over and over again. So the one thing we do think about is trying to avoid sounding, we try not to repeat ourselves too much. I mean, obviously there are going to be elements that you can recognize from previous albums and stuff, but yeah, if you listen back to our back catalog for every album, we try to introduce new things and try out new stuff, and add new elements to the music. But but then those elements, and that can be whatever. It's not. But if we come up with something that sounds interesting, we tend to keep it. It's like, oh, that's something we haven't done before. Let's go for that.
Having John come on board as well as the new keyboardist, it feels like he brings something fresh to the band as well. Tell us a little bit about John and how you guys knew that he was the perfect mix for the band.
Yeah, I mean, some of us have, including me, we've known him for a long time. He's like a classically trained pianist, and he's also a jazz musician. And I mean, we know him, and we knew that he would be a perfect fit, and that he has his own unique approach. I mean, he's a phenomenal keyboard player, and he can play pretty much everything, and just like me, he's a very improvisational player when it comes to solos and stuff, and a bit of a, which a lot of rock musicians, aren't. So it's, I think his, he brought another dimension to our sound, and he has a great ear, and he instinctively knows what we're trying to express with every song, and he has his own unique voice, and it just blends in, and like you said, it adds another dimension to our sound.
You mentioned about the uniqueness of his playing. I understand he comes from a kind of fusion jazz, almost pop background. Is that right?
Yeah. He mostly plays jazz these days, but but like I said, it's I mean, I love. I've spent a lot of time playing improvisational music too, and jazz and stuff. So it's nice to have that sort of, you know, people coming from all kinds of backgrounds. Because like Joan as a drummer, he also spent a lot of time playing jazz when he was younger, and I guess it filters through, and perhaps not always in obvious ways, but we have this improvisational element to our music. There's a lot of spontaneous things happening. A lot of rock bands these days, you can tell that all the solos are like planned in advance, and you know, everything is really composed. Whereas when you hear our music, a lot of it is we just improvise in the studio, and you know, let whatever happen.
Yeah. So can you talk us through that process a little bit? Like, is it just when you guys do you jam a song and that improvisation comes out then, or does it come out as you kind of work through the track with each piece?
Yeah, I mean, we usually have a rough demo when we enter the studio, and then it's more like we listen to it, and it's like, oh, let's have a keyboard fill here, or some strange bass solo here. I mean, we even if it's mostly me and Björn writing the songs, we're all together when everyone's really involved in the creative process in the studio, and creating the sound and the atmosphere. And I mean, we've always been producing and recording our albums, I mean, ourselves. We never had an external producer or anyone else, you know. So it's all just the group dynamic, and everyone's, you know, chipping in and adding their own voice to the mix, I guess.
Yeah, I understand you guys had a lot of fun too with the music videos this time, especially with White Jeans and Burn For Me. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, the Burn For Me video clip's almost like a party to celebrate the world opening back up again, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. We wanted to, you know, have a party atmosphere, like dancing in the streets, and so yeah, it's just yeah. I don't know. It's just I think it captures that party atmosphere quite well, and some nice choreography, and you know, all the good things in life.
Definitely. And this album captures that 80s and 90s vibe so well. And I know I've asked Bjorn this before, but I've never asked you this. What kind of music were you listening to back in the 80s and 90s? What kind of music did you grow up listening to?
I mean, I grew up listening to all kinds of music. I mean, back in the 80s when I was a kid, I was mostly listening to, you know, classic hard rock, metal stuff like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Ozzy Osbourne, Led Zeppelin. But at the same time, you had the whole, you know, pop music thing going on all around you. Like MTV was starting to happen, and you read lots of, you know, music magazines, so and watched the movies, and you just, you know, it rubs off on you when you're immersed in that kind of culture during your upbringing. So and I still think that some of the best music comes from that era, and especially the approach to music, like Anything Goes, and that you're allowed to be a bit over the top and a bit too much, and that you never need to feel embarrassed, or, you know, there's no self-irony or, you know, detachment. It's all like, oh, let's go for it and just go over the top and be a bit too much if we want to, you know.
Definitely, yeah.
And that's, yeah.
And there was such
so that's more like the minds. I mean, even if you can hear some musical influence, it's the most important part that we've been influenced when it comes to the 80s stuff and the 70s stuff. It's like that whole over-the-top mentality, like just take it a bit too far.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes things interesting.
Yeah, and we had such amazing soundtracks back then as well, and I think that was one of the things that hit me listening to this album was any of these tracks would have worked on a soundtrack back then. Were you a big fan of the soundtracks of the 80s and 90s as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not as if I, listen to them actively. I didn't buy the soundtrack records, but I mean, I saw Top Gun and at the cinema, when it came, and St. Elmo's Fire and Rocky 4 and all that. It was like all those classic 80s movies came when I was, entering my adolescence, and I could go to watch the movies myself. With friends, and So of course, I mean, those songs and soundtracks were everywhere, and of course it's been a great influence as well. Even if it's you didn't have to have the record back then, because the songs were everywhere anyway.
Definitely.
So yeah, absolutely.
Well, David, I know we are running out of time very, very quickly. So before I go, I'd love to ask, what would you like to say to all of your fans out there before they go out and grab a copy of this album? And also, are you guys able to hit the road over there at the moment and play some of these tracks live?
No, I mean, we have plans, obviously, and we've had plans for the past year. I mean, going on tour and playing festivals, but everything is getting postponed all the time for obvious reasons, because we keep getting the pandemic pops up every now and then in different countries, and so it's really hard to make any long-term plans. But we're in standby mode. We're hoping to come out play some shows as soon as it's possible, but it'll probably be a while yet. So I have no idea. We've been hoping to get back on the road for the past year. So far it hasn't been possible, and I have no idea when it will be possible again with all the new strains and variants, and but yeah, and I mean, when it comes to Australia, I hope that it feels as if for each album we make, we get more interest from you guys. I mean, doing more and more interviews, and it seems like we're building something down there, which is lovely. I mean, I've been there quite a few times with Soilwork, and it's always a great experience, and it would be lovely to one day be able to go there with the Night Flight Orchestra as well, because I think it would be I have this feeling that it would go down really well with Australian audiences. What do you think? Definitely.
Look, from what we've seen with this new single, I think you guys have won over even more fans this time around, and yeah, cannot wait to see you guys in Australia at some stage.
No, it would be lovely. So I guess that's my main message. Like, if you listen to the album and like it, please tell your friends about it too, and so that hopefully we'll eventually have enough of a following that some promoter might find it worth bringing us over to do a tour.
Definitely. Well, David, I just want